Greetings and good evening to you all. Welcome to the Raw Approach. I am Dr. Woods, and we're here to have another great day. Hope everybody is doing well. I'm about to bring on Dr. Tami Stewart. I'm going to let her introduce herself, and then we're about to dive on into the show. Dr. Stewart, introduce yourself to the folks.
Well, good evening. My name is Dr. Tamara Grimes Stewart. I go by Tami Stewart. I am the Director of Elementary Education for a school district in Delaware, where I have the absolute pleasure of overseeing 9 elementary schools and 3 preschools or early childhood centers. Before that, I was a principal for about 7 years, an AP for 2 years, a special education coordinator, a building special ed coordinator, and a special education teacher.
You've been busy.
A little bit in these couple of days.
But that's what's up. Well, we're gonna go ahead and dive into this thing. Let's see here. What is your inspiration, or what inspired you in the career of elementary and special education?
What inspired me? I had an amazing first grade teacher, Rosemary Banks, who just instilled in me a love of teaching. When I began my education journey, it was about the time that desegregation happened in Delaware. And there, of course, was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of things happening, but she made her classroom feel like home. She had high expectations. She made sure that we treated each other kind. And she also had that motherly side, because you weren't going outside looking a wreck and not being a little lady or a little gentleman. So she inspired me. I knew I wanted to be something in education, and initially I thought that I wanted to be a band teacher until I got to college and realized I did not enjoy that as much, and I switched my major over to elementary and special education. One of my mentors said, you might as well get a dual degree while you're here. And I think at that time I wasn't even thinking long term. I never thought that I would teach special ed. Then I had an opportunity to do some student teaching, and I said, this is where I'm most needed. And I did that for about 10 years before I went to work for the Department of Education.
That's what's up. Let me back up to something. You said a band teacher?
I did. I used to play the clarinet and the violin. In high school, I was in marching band, symphonic band, concert band, all-girl quartet. I was everything music. Even though I am not a fan of outside, I went to band camps. I did all those things. So I really wanted to do music. And then I got to college and realized that those people practice all the time and every day. And I did not want to do that. So I kind of switched up and went into elementary and special education.
Well, that's perfect. Now that you are doing elementary special education, what is your role now?
So I was a principal, assistant principal, and principal for about 9 years. And I really enjoyed that. I loved my kiddos. They were my babies. I still call them my babies, even though some of them are pretty much grown. And from there, after COVID hit, I was approached about doing something different, but I could not leave my kids and my staff. That wasn't who I was. I knew that my kids and staff returning after COVID, they needed me and I needed them. So I kind of sat around, and then an opportunity came for me to become the director of elementary education. And like I said, now I oversee all of the principals, the assistant principals, our deans of students. I also have the pleasure of working with our school counselors, and just working with different departments to ensure that we are supporting all kids, whether that's academic or behavior.
Okay, and I guess that a lot of that has in that position.
So you went out on me. If you could repeat the question, thank you.
I said, does a lot of that you just spoke about, does that have to deal with the role that you play in your position now?
I say that I deal with all things elementary, so that includes curriculum, That includes what we call MTSS, which is the multi-tiered systems of support, and that deals with both academics and behavior. I deal with parent love when they call and they have some love they want to share about schools. I also go into schools and still observe teachers. That is something that I decided to do. I didn't, when I walked out of my building, I still wanted to stay connected to what was happening. And I feel like the only way that I personally can do that is through doing observations of teachers and also creating relationships with them. Oftentimes people feel when you go to district office, you lose touch with reality. And it was important for me to stay in touch with what was happening so that I could better support not only my teachers, but the students.
With all that said, with all the people that you supervise and manage, how do you identify or put into place your leadership style?
Leadership for me is a continuous growth. I learn something every day. I knew that the type of leader that I wanted to be was one that is transparent and that is ethical. So the decisions that I've always made when I've been in leadership position is it's about the kids and what do the kids need and how do I support them? And then of course comes the staff. So I lead with transparency. My staff hopefully will tell you now, but my previous role will tell you that I was very honest. If I didn't know something, I said I don't know, but I'll find out. If I made a mistake, I stood up there and I apologized because I believe that that's what good leaders do. You have to take the good with the bad. And while they always want to say my leadership, I had an amazing team that I got to work with, an amazing team that I work now with, that I give them a lot of the credit. I just have the pleasure of leading them through this journey.
That's what's up. And so in that situation, how do you support your staff and like to really to let them know that you're there for them and that you just not, just leading, but you are a person that you are you hands-on ground focus and give them what they need to help them be better. How do you support your staff? Or what is your supporting style?
I don't know what my style is. It varies from day to day. I love humor, so humor goes a long way with me. I think that I'm a listener. I listen to what the concerns are and I give feedback. And, I've always said to my staff, sometimes you may not like the feedback and it's never my intention to hurt people's feelings, but I'm going to be honest with that feedback because that's how I feel that we grow. My superintendent, when I first started, well, she's superintendent now, would say, clear is kind. And just be clear so that people can see the kindness. I don't hide a lot of things, but I also get in the trenches with my administrators. Like I said, I observed 9 teachers this year 3 times because I wanted to go in and see what was happening. But I also took one of staff members off each of their caseload. I wanted to try to make their caseload lighter. So I do things, I create different kinds of forms and things to hopefully make their job easier because I still recall what it feels like to be the principal. I still recall the amount, the heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? So I want to stay close to that. I want to understand what they're going through so that I can be supportive. I also ask for their feedback. I'm not perfect at this. And if I'm not doing something right, I prefer that you tell me than to put me in the group chat because I'm not in the group chat with you. So if you can tell me what's happening, I can do my best. And I've apologized to them for deliveries of messages that come at a late date. Or if I feel like I've done something that is out of the norm for me. So I hope that they are seeing the human side of me, that I make mistakes like they do. I own my mistakes and I move past them.
Do you think that in today's time that more and more people understand the importance of constructive criticism in the past? Or how do you deal with that with the people that you are supervising?
I don't know that I like to call it criticism all the time. It's feedback, right? It's feedback that I'm giving you, and I'm genuine with the feedback, right? So I always go in with the attitude of let's be collaborative. on this. I definitely want to hear either your side of the story or you know what happened, but how do we move on, or how do we not repeat these same things? I think sometimes, you know, in the way that you deliver the message, it helps when you have a relationship with people and they
Absolutely.
understand who you are, and then they're able to take that feedback differently than I'm just walking off the street and giving you this feedback. One of the things that I've done with the teachers that I observed this year is I started off very easy in my feedback. And I asked a lot of questions. There were things that I didn't know. And I think being vulnerable to show people I'm not coming in here as the expert, right? Yes, this is my title, but I'm definitely not an expert. You're the expert. So help me learn what you do and why you do it. I think asking the right questions and not being accusatory is also beneficial.
I totally agree with that. So being that you have a district that you are responsible for, you have past students, you have past families, how do you continue to stay focused with the families and the community? How do you keep everyone involved and engaged?
So my role has changed a little bit. As a building principal, I did that daily, right? Whether that was through my weekly updates or interacting with families when they came in for different events or activities or parent-teacher conferences. So now my role is a little different. I'm not disconnected, but I don't have that familiarity that I used to have when I was in a building, with my team and my teachers and my kiddos. So it really is kind of, listening to parent concerns, responding, and I usually try to respond pretty quickly because as a parent, I want, if I contact you, I want a quick response. So I try to respectfully do that. And I try to have respectful dialogue because that's your child and you're passionate about your child, and as you should be. And I think I come from a place of understanding. I do try to attend events at the different schools. There are 9 of them. And like I said, 3 early childhood centers. So it is a little hard because they're just one of me. But, I do my best to show up and just be in the crowd and enjoy the kids. That's part of my job that I really miss, being around kids. I always call it when I need a boost, I go touch the grass, which is I go be in a classroom or I go sit and watch kids. That's why I entered into this field 30-something years ago to help support the nurturing of children. So sometimes in my role, I get a little bogged down with the other things. And when I need to pick me up, I go to a school or I see some of my old kids who run up and hug me, and then it resets my purpose.
I find that to be a very important piece. Sometimes you have to go back to where you start or where you come from just to continue to get that feeling of why is it that you've done what you've done in the beginning. And the reason I say that is a lot of time in the industry that I come from, when people move from that ground roots, from the group homes to residential facilities, or even the lockdown, they move to go to corporate offices and stuff. And like prime example, we talk about this one VP that we had, that he was a wonderful, one of the best engagers of employee engagement. But as he moved on, it's almost like he forgot that piece. And it was all more about what the corporate office needed. And it just really, it became part of his downfall, that he no longer was in touch with the kids' needs and the staff needs. It's all about what this was corporate need. And so that's very important, is to be able to identify that piece, to come back and see what's going on. And I also seen on Undercover Boss, when that show first came out, I think it was the CEO of Subway or something like that. It was an Asian guy. I might miss, but I think it was Subway, where he asked all the corporate people to go, we're going to come out this office, this beautiful office, and we're going to go into the stores so that we can see what our people is doing. So we know sometimes you can be so out of touch to the point that you don't even know what you're leading in the morning. That's a bad situation to be in.
Agreed.
All right. With that said, this is my favorite piece I like to ask everyone, is work-life balance. I know you have a family. I know you are always busy doing what you're doing, as we talk. What is your process in handling family and work-life balance?
I will say that it has taken a while to find that balance. I am the proud mother of two wonderful young adults, a 23-year-old son and a almost 17-year-old daughter. And it was very important for me in the beginning when they were young to be there for them, to make sure that I was involved in their schooling. I can say I probably have missed maybe one event that they've ever done. They both played the trombone, which is weird, but they both did that.
So y'all musically gifted family.
I don't know that gifted would be the word that I would use, but we did our thing. But I always wanted to make sure that when they look back on life, they could say that my mom was there, and that was important for me to do that. So in the beginning, I can say I was running myself into the ground. I was trying to be everything to everybody. But in the same token, that kind of paid off for my kids because they are so amazing and in their own right. And, you know, they're both very creative, but they're very kind. And that's what I wanted in the world we live in today. Some kids don't understand what that means. So that was important. But as they got older, I began to do different things. And I want to shout out my village because I was the chapter president at one point, the new principal at the same time. I was chapter president, and I relied highly on my sister, on my mom, on their dad. I needed that village around me to help me do all the things, all the community service projects. As a chapter president, it was a lot happening. But my kids and I had routines, and they knew that I was going to be there. When I first got my principalship for the first 3 years, I was at every event that was had. And that takes its toll after a while on you physically. I think now my daughter's about to be a senior. You know, she's an amazing student. I feel like I've done that work that needed to be done and supported her through middle school. As a former middle school teacher, those are some tough years. And she came through and did amazing. My son graduated college and, you know, and looking to move to Japan. He's, you know, living his dream and trying to find that. So, you know, as I've gotten more seasoned in life, I've learned to take time for me to do things that I like to do currently, which is travel, and take time just to spend with me. So, you know, I will say in the beginning, I did not have work-life balance. It was either all work or all kids. And there was not a lot of time for me. But life is short, and having watched, you know, people that I care about who are no longer here just starts teaching me lessons that, you know, tomorrow's not promised. So what do I need to do to take care of me to the best of my ability?
That's what's up. Before we dive into our next piece, I want to put this video on, and then we're going to go from there, all right?
Up in the sky, rocket ship. First class, up in the sky, rocket ship. You wanna get
Now, you know, I could not let you get Blue, Hardy! Leave in the house. You know, there was no way I could let you get out without at least throwing a shout out to all my sisters in that blue and white Z5B in the house. You were just talking about chapter president and all that type stuff. I know you identify how busy that you be even to this day. With the sorority. Go ahead, this is your time. Talk about the blue and white.
So I became a Zeta in the fall of 1992 at the University of Delaware through the captivating Chi Theta chapter. There were 7 of us who went through this process, and I tell people all the time that Zeta chose me and I chose Zeta, and Zeta during that time period is what I needed. As I had grown in Zeta, Zeta actually was the force behind some of the leadership. I didn't necessarily see leadership in me, but it was Source who tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, have you thought about, do you see this in yourself? And for that, I am forever grateful that Zeta saw in me things that I didn't see in me. Some of my best friends are my sorors. I love the connection and the bond that we have. Hopefully my legacy as my daughter will follow in my footsteps. I already have my niece who is my legacy. So, and I have another young niece who's in the youth program with my daughter. And I look at all of the things that Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated brings to our community. And I'm so super proud of the work that we do, not just at the local level, but as states, as regionals, and as at a national level. We roll our sleeves up and we get to work. And we are what we say we are. We are a community conscious, action-oriented organization. And I thoroughly believe in the principles. I see you. I thoroughly believe in
always represent one way or another.
Yes, that we uphold. And I think for me, there was no other choice but Zeta Phi Beta. And I'm so glad that I've had the experiences that I've had in Zeta and the relationships that I've had. And, of course, shout out to my frat brothers, my big brothers who, look after me. I come from a family of all girls, so I wasn't used to having brothers. But the Sigmas have always stepped up and shown me love and made sure I was good all the time. So it's definitely appreciated that we have this network and this family. And I will say my first administration job actually came from frat Dr. Rashid Walker. Shout out to him. He called me and said, I think there's an AP position for you in this district. And I was like, I don't know. And he, got me in. And then another frat brother, James Simmons, was in the district. And it was love and support along with, sorors, my soror, my Sands, Carrie Lawrence was there. We both crossed at the same time, met each other at the Greek picnic in 1995, said, okay, call me. And then we ended up, joining the same chapter. Our kids kind of grew up together and we are in the same district working. So there's a lot of love and connection that we have. But shout out to all of my D9 brothers and sisters, because it truly takes a village for all of us to get where we are, and we can reach back and help each other and others.
That's what's up. Well, first of all, I like to get loud when it's about that blue and white, especially about this Phi Beta Sigma. So to all my brothers, and no matter where you are, what country, what stateside, no matter what you got,
They heard you too. They heard you. Mm-hmm. They did.
Well, I love to represent all the way to the fullest. But before we wrap up, is there anything I'd like to ask? Is there anything you would like to ask me?
So you started this journey. I'm asking.
Okay.
You started this podcast 2020.
Sure, right after.
So what made you start? Wanting to get online and be live and have conversations with people?
Well, ultimately, it started with the whole boosting of my business of executive leadership, coaching, and consulting. And from that, I wanted to, in fact, I just talked with a guy on today. We was doing a little bit more detail about this. My goal is with employee work-life balance, how people is dealing with that. And for me as a leader, my leadership style is always trying to figure out what it's going to take to make my employees better. And when I say better, it means more in tune, more focused, feel like they got the resources they need, the support that they need. But at the same time, I need them to understand that, it's not always about having things your way. And from being an older person in the industry, I had to learn for myself and to educate the young people is that, you done heard this before, your parents done told you before. And when it comes to young people in the industry, a lot of them feel that they got the answers. They know how to go and make things better and all this type of stuff. And I told them a lot of times moving just to get a quarter to make more money is not always the best answer. But I'm the type person that I believe that if you tell me that stove is hot, I'm going to believe that stove is hot and I'm not going to touch it. But there's a lot of people that feel that they got to go get burnt in order to understand that their stove is hot. So I try to put the information out there so people can get it, and so I can learn, we can grow, as you was talking about earlier. And just got a phone call from a sibling that worked with me at the juvenile detention center. Just out the blue, the guy just called and said, "Hey, Mr. Woods," now Dr. Woods, as he said, I know that you don't know, but I've been following your progress and everything, and I still had your phone number. Me and my brother just wanted to reach out to you and say, man, we appreciate everything, because all the nuggets that you was giving us as young 23, 24-year-old men, you even told us, y'all two brothers, y'all think y'all got it going on, and y'all gonna move and all this type of stuff, and I get it. And I sat down and told myself, but at the same time, make sure that if you move in a different direction, that you are learning something. And learning does not necessarily mean stuff that you're getting from the job, but learning life experiences, because sooner or later, I told them, y'all gonna wake up, y'all gonna be 30 plus years old, and now you're gonna have some new young bucks that you got to give that information to. And so he was just explaining to me how it's so crazy how 6-7 years flew by so fast, and now they doing exactly what we talked about. So my thing is, I like to pour nuggets. I like to see people get better. I like to see people move. And not only that, I like to see people in leadership become better leaders, better executives, better whatever it takes, better listeners, better, just always back to the simple approach. And that's why my company, the R.A.W. approach is all about respect, appreciate, and feeling worthy. And it's just 3 simple principles. It's nothing super elaborate. It's no new inventing in the wheels. It's just going back to principles that was here back 30, 40 years ago. And then when I started serving leadership, I understood that from that leadership, from transformational leadership, transactional leadership, to many other different leadership styles, even to modern day now, the teaming approach where people can learn from other people. I mean, just putting all that stuff together and identifying this stuff was talked about 40 years ago. A lot of people just forgot to use it, sometimes. And this is the thing, coming from government, like Department of Children's Service, what I found out there was so crazy is that you can have an administration that come in, change everything, got these new ideas. 4 or 8 years later, you got another administration that's going to come in and they're going to make some change. The administration that come in after them going to come up with this great idea, and the great idea that they're going to put in place is to do the stuff that we did 16 years ago. So a lot of stuff is all about, let's just get back to the basics. So I'm all about getting back to the basics and see how we can improve, make things better, and understand that a lot of people have changed, mindsets have changed. And that means that sometimes that I, as a leader, and teach other leaders, sometimes we have to change, but still get the message across. And I always like to use the example about a pastor. I always like to say pastors should not get upset when your people from your congregation go to another church and hear the exact same sermon, the exact topic preached, and then they be like, "Oh man, that man preached, he got it," or he, or we got a message. Sometimes people just need to hear something from somebody else, and it gives them a different perspective, or they're able to hear it something different. And that's why I use other leaders to bring different concepts in order for things to hit other people. Because I understand, like you said, I'm not the one that know it all. And none of us know it all. But sometimes when you bring that collaboration together, you can reach the masses. Anything else?
No. But
All right. All right. Well, leave the audience with a closing remark. Leave the audience with something that Dr. Stewart likes to tell her people and to get them motivated to get through another week.
I don't know that I have motivated words. It's the end of the school year, okay? So my motivation is at the other end. Catch me in September. Let's see August. But I also I'm a firm believer in sometimes God has a plan that you are delayed but not denied. And I began my doctorate journey in 2005. And then in 2008, I found out that I was pregnant and I was going through some things and I could not finish my doctorate. I had to make a choice between being a mother to 2 kids, one being a newborn, one being a 6-year-old. And, doing all those things or finishing the doctorate. And, as heartbreaking as it was for me to stop my journey, I know that at that time, that's what I needed to do. And I always had told myself that I wanted to graduate with my doctorate before my son finished college. I wanted to be him. It became a little game, but I also knew the importance of, again, being a mom. And then, through my journey, God had blessed me with, opportunities that, I had sometimes given up on just because it was a no. Looking back, I appreciated that no. Now, in that moment, I did not understand it. I was working so hard. I was getting all of these accolades, but it was still no. And then one day God opened the door and ushered me in. And in a year and a half, my previous superintendent said, you're going to be principal of this school. And I was thinking, I thought I was going to be an AP for at least 5 years, not, what ended up being 2. And I went into being a building leader, open to learn, tired at sometimes, but definitely excited, with a big heart. And I say all that to say I ended up graduating last year, 2 weeks after my son got his degree. But it was an amazing moment there. Thank you. With him, we both graduated at the same time. And I always tell him I have 4 degrees because I paid for some of that degree. That's mine too. I got a communications degree along with this doctorate on that same year. But it was, sitting down and looking and being like, we sometimes don't understand the path that God has put in front of us. But, I stayed faithful and I, prayed through it, even in those moments where I didn't know what was going to happen. And I'm so appreciative of being grounded in that. And knowing where I need to go when it seems like the world is dark around me. So I have always said, that doctorate was delayed, but it wasn't denied.
What you said.
And not that it has changed me. Those people that know Tami know that I'm just Tami and, that doctor's in front of it, but I'm still me. And I love that the family that I have grown up in keeps me grounded. Sometimes we get those degrees and we start moving a little differently, but I'm blessed to have people around me that think similar, and I'm not going to say I came from the bottom because I definitely did not, but there were struggles and things like that, but always, I had people around me, family around me that helped me stay focused, that prayed for me when I didn't know that they were praying for me and that I needed those prayers. So I'm appreciative of that journey. So to all of you all, stay inspired. If you have a dream, keep going after it. Sometimes it's just delayed, but it's not denied. And to all my educator friends, hang in there. Those of you that are out, I envy you. Those of us that are still there, hold on. We almost to the finish line.
That's what's up. I know I want to share what that is, and also to continue to remind people that, like you said, delay does not mean a denial, because I too was in that same situation starting out. And then, when you start going through life experiences is going to take over. And when you start going through life experiences, time passes you. But you always got to have that mindset. Oh, I'm going to finish this. It's going to happen. And that's how I was. And even to the point, and sometimes you just got to move silently in that process of getting it. Like my sister-in-law, when I sent out the notification, her and my brother went to the graduation ceremony with me in Phoenix, and she was like, "Man, all this time I didn't know you was in school. You just moved," and I didn't know. And I said, "Well, that's just how I am. I'm kind of a person that like to stay to myself. I like to do things, and when things happen, then I make the announcement. But the journey I identify is our individual journeys, no matter who we are, and that approach should be applied to life. You cannot put yourself in a situation and allow your past to dictate your future. You got to put yourself in a situation where you say, when for me, it was like, when I get to this, I'm gonna make this happen. And then, like, you set that goal that you wanted to graduate with your son. I think that's a wonderful
before
thing.
him, not
Before
with him.
Well,
it was a
him.
competition he didn't even know he was in.
Exactly. Well, before him, and sometimes, whatever that motivation is at that time, you got to do it. And for me, it was just a lot of stuff that had happened, gone past, working the job that required, like you said, a lot of my time at that time. And then one day I just woke up and God was like, "What's the excuse now?" And I was like, "Let's make it happen," and put the time in. And when it came to the defense, I think I was more nervous, but my thing is, I just tell myself, "Man, you done lived this for the past 27 years. What are you nervous about? Shoot, represent." And it was good, and everything was over pretty quick. But I can say that, it's all about journey. So somebody out there in the land of social media, just always remember, don't get discouraged. A denial is not a deny. Continue to do what you do, stay focused, and just, keep your mind on the prize, whatever that prize is. And we're going to go for that. Once again, I want to thank you, Dr. Stewart, for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing your information with us, your knowledge. And everybody else out there, thank you for joining the Raw Approach. I am Dr. Woods. Always remember, small victories lead to greater success. You have just been hit by the Raw Approach. Peace out.